Hello, everyone. Welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Akin. I'm your host, Olivia Akin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We will give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Chris Wilczewski. Chris is an entrepreneur, investor, American Ninja Warrior athlete appearing on the American Ninja Warrior show from Season 2 through Season 11, and currently the president of the World Ninja League. You can find Chris at theworldninjaleague.com. Hello, Chris. It's fantastic having you on the show. To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Chris Wilczewski?
Hey, Olivia. It's a pleasure being here. I'm really excited to be a part of the podcast. That's a really great question. I feel like a lot of different people really measure success in different ways. And I don't know if there's any one, true way to define it. For me personally, I feel like I would have different areas of success. It could be as simple as, being a good father and being involved in my kid's life, or, it could be more on the business side of things, making sure that the business is successful, maintaining certain numbers, hitting certain quotas, or, it could be, on the athletic side, in terms of my performance on, my past performances on the American Ninja Warrior competitions. So I feel like there's for me, there's a couple of different categories that I would, think about when I think about success. And I think each one of those has their own kind of unique path for, what success means in those areas.
And have you gone through different stages personally and professionally as, you hit different milestones and goals? Do they change over time?
Oh, definitely. I personally have been always about kind of setting like, short term reachable goals, things that you can, obtain within the next month, 2 months. And then there's always the longer, bigger, overarching goals where it's like, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, that's where we're going to be. And I think that's true both in, personal life and in business life. I think, your personal goals for the short term might be something as simple as starting maybe not simple, it's it's a lot of work starting a family, but it might be something like starting a family and kind of taking those next steps. And then for the business it might be putting together like a more formal structure for what you're doing, or reaching a certain level with your platform. So definitely important to have incremental goals along the way.
And I think that was key that you just touched upon, having incremental goals along the way, short term and long term. And that does not just mean personally or professionally, it means both.
Exactly. You always see like those memes or the charts where, success isn't like a linear path. It's, lots of ups and downs. And that's so true, because you have to readjust every time and say like, okay, well now I'm here. So like, what does the next steps look like? And, reassess those short-term goals and maybe even reevaluate those long-term ones and make sure that you're taking the right steps towards them.
So, Chris, what made you pursue the path of training for American Ninja Warrior for season 2?
Yeah, for the very first season I did it, it was interesting to say the least. I was always a big fan of the G4 network, which is what hosted the original competition series back when it was American Ninja Warrior season 2. And just in watching it, they had open tryouts for it, so they would advertise on the G4 network. They're like, oh, anybody could come try out for this competition, and they would showcase some of the videos of other people trying out, and they were similar to me. They were guys with some sports background, some parkour background, some gymnastics background, and just out there doing it. And I was like, hey, that looks like a ton of fun. Why not go take a stab at it? So I did. Obviously I really enjoyed it because I'm still involved in the sport today. And I, spent almost a decade competing on the TV show. So definitely, really positive things there.
And while your time on the show, I mean, what is the behind the scenes like? What did you do to train mentally and physically for years of success on that show?
Yeah, that's a really good question because for those of you unfamiliar with the format or the way the TV show works, um, they give you these crazy, grandiose obstacles that you need to do or need to accomplish in your first opportunity. There's no concept of like knowing what you're going to be facing or testing them ahead of time or uh, anything really that kind of gives you an indication. So, like the preparation that goes into achieving success on the show is so vast. It's like, studying for a final exam where you have to cover so many different chapters and you're not even really sure. You don't even have a guide or a blueprint for like what's really going to be on. And you just gotta, try to capture all of it. And then, to take it a step further, when you're out there, uh the format of the competition is this kind of like one and done concept where like as soon as you fall in the water, like that's it, you're done. You're not coming out of the water and doing another one. It's like that's it, game over. So it's like you have this huge preparation and then you get one chance to do it. It'd be like, studying for that final. And then as soon as you got one of the questions wrong, like that's it. All right, bye. See you next year. Good luck. Shouldn't have got that question wrong. And it's just totally, totally crazy and mentally taxing to prepare for success in that, grandiose of a scale. So I think that I learned pretty quickly that like, setting those reasonable, obtainable goals and learning to be happy with my performance, whatever that was, was very important early on to, make sure that I stay healthy and stay involved in the sport.
And I think that was another key point you just touched upon. It's not just staying healthy, but being happy with your own performance. There is a time where you could kind of like self evaluate and reflect, but you got to move forward. You can't just stem in that moment.
Exactly. There's so many years where I didn't perform to like the level that I necessarily wanted to. And I'll be the first to admit there's definitely sadness, reflection that comes with it. I may have sat down on the couch and ate an entire tub of ice cream or two. And like, it is what it is, but it's the okay, like, you had your moment of, wishing that you had done a little bit better. Now it's time to recoup, regather, and set those goals and, take a strong reflective look at, okay, well, what went wrong? Why didn't it go the way that we wanted it to? And then get back out there and to be happy, regardless, to moving forward, be like, okay, like, those types of setbacks happen and it's fine to keep moving forward.
Chris, when you started to get towards the end of your seasons on the show and decide your next path, what were some of the things you were working on professionally or personally to take that next step, whether it was during your time on the show or at the end?
Yeah, I mean, as an athlete, I always knew that my shelf life is limited. And in terms of staying competitive in a sport, for most athletes, it's late teens to early 20s is where they're going to be most competitive, and I knew that was the case with me. So I think I always kind of had in the back of my head that like, okay, like this is your 5 to 7 years where you can give it 100%. Um, and I think that I took advantage of that in those moments. And then, when my time was up, I knew that it was time to kind of like let go. I could kind of see the underlying things around me where it's like, a lot of the younger athletes were coming up and, they were getting more and more competitive. And, instead of just continuing to like, push through and struggle with, very little reward, which, some athletes do. Some athletes try to stay competitive into their, mid 30s, late 30s. My personal, path was to say, okay, like, you gave it your all for those couple of years. And now let's, start looking at some of these other things that you were kind of setting up while you were doing that. And for me, that was really my business and my family. So, I felt like it was an easy transition because I kind of always knew that it was coming, and the work that I was putting in with my businesses and with the family was kind of just like an easy segue to where I was going next in the sport.
So let's touch upon that for a minute because I know Chris's businesses very well. I have been inside his facilities many, many times, and some of them were, to pick up people and somewhere to hang out and try the equipment myself after the hours of, normal operations. So, that being said, for anyone who has visited any of Chris's gyms, especially his first one in New Jersey, what made you decide to open a gym? Because during that time of, the peak start of American Ninja Warrior and what people knew of that, there wasn't any real training facilities or anything like what you created.
No, there wasn't. The gym that we created here in New Jersey, we being myself and my brother, because we did it together, was the first in the country that was specific to ninja and parkour in that capacity. And for us, I feel like it grew or kind of stemmed from like just like a love for the sport. We really enjoyed competing on the show. We enjoyed the obstacles, we enjoyed the environment, we enjoyed the people. Um, so we're just like, we have this small community, why not try to start something? And I think to both of us, it was a little bit of a surprise, like how much it grew and exploded from there. But initially, it just came from like a love for it. It's like a chef opening a restaurant because they just really love to cook, or an ex football player opening some type of football clinic. Is like we just really enjoyed doing it, and thought that it was really awesome and wanted to share it with more people. So we did.
And I think that's a key point. You opened a business in something you loved because you just enjoyed it and you wanted to do it. And that love really shined through in the service you provided, in how the gym is set up, and now how your other gyms are set up. And I think one thing that really shined through from my own experiences is the community you built from that gym. And tell me what that was like.
Yeah, I mean, that's spot on. It's always been about community for us, and it's always been about, this kind of inclusion and, letting other people share the same joy that we have. And you're right. It's about trying to deliver a good product because we like it. We know what we like about it, and trying to show that path to others. And around it, we've met some incredible people like yourself and other people that have come to the gym, that we connect on a deeper level because it is more meaningful. It isn't just like, oh, we're here to try to print money or, crank through whatever business operations we're doing. It was really about delivering, high quality experience and sharing that experience with some really great people. That's how it's always been for us.
Well, you've definitely succeeded in that area. And one thing I think you really showed your love and passion for the sport. I mean, Chris would even train individuals and take them out after, training in the facility to try to do it in real time with, just what's around you. And I think that was always really cool of how you implemented what's in your training facility to what's around you. And what was that mentality like?
Yeah, that really came from, the parkour background of, being adaptable and being able to use your environment, use your surroundings to train. And it was something that I personally always just really enjoyed doing. So it was really easy, really natural. And I think a lot of the people that came into the facility were interested in like, oh, okay, well, like, what's the next evolution of this? Like, oh, okay, I can do this here. Where else can I take this?
Yeah, and that's a great point of being able to use your environment, what is around you, to grow and to succeed. Chris, when you decided to take this a step farther and become the president of the World Ninja League, what made you accept that and how did that kind of come about?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I feel like the World Ninja League, previously the National Ninja League, was founded 2015, 2016, something like that. And the entire mission for it was to really standardize and grow, obstacle sports. and like ninja style competitions. If you look at your other traditional sports like gymnastics, football, soccer, there's all, very, tight specific regulations that say like this is how you compete. These are the rules that you need to follow. And, it makes it really simple, really easy for people to understand. Like when you're watching a basketball game, like, the fact that it's boxed in with the lines, you know exactly where, the athletes need to be at all times. And the vision for starting the league was to create that, but for obstacle sports, because it was the beginning stages is very fragmented, I think is the best word to use, where there was like pieces of this sport or elements of this sport kind of like all tied together in this like smorgasbord, with less than standardized rules. And the league's whole aim was to say, okay, well, how do we take, something like rigging an obstacle, which is really, complex and nuanced, and, create safety standards and, regulations and formats for how you do that so that it's done in an appropriate way so that more people can be involved in the sport on a safe level. And how do you take, the competitions that are happening and, make them fair and consistent for all the athletes, and take that concept from other sports of like, oh, like, you're inbounds, you're in the boundary of the basketball court, and how do you take that and apply it to ninja? And that's where the World Ninja League came in, and that's where part of my role was as a former athlete, that happened to have a business experience, was to take that and try to adapt and to, get those regulations and standards for ninja and obstacle competitions. Um, and I feel like we've done a pretty decent job over the years of progressing that. And now what we have, it's not quite the boundaries of a basketball court, but it's the concept of just moving platform to platform and how your referee will clear that. It's floor is lava for whoever. So yeah, I think that's how I got involved, why I got involved, and uh, what I've been trying to work towards for the past couple of years.
And I think that it brings up a good point. And now in sports, especially with technology and what we've learned about the impact on your body mentally, what all these sports are doing, how important is it to you and your vision for the safety of the sport? I mean, the World Ninja League is the industry standard. It's really elevating between regulations and the safety protocols that are put in place, and is showing other companies and other people who want to pursue this the right way to do it. So when you started on this path of the safety and the regulations, what stood out most to you, and what was your goal to accomplish, and how did you get there?
Yeah, no, that's a tough one because I feel like there's so many different things that kind of like went into all of it, and especially the early stages. It kind of goes back to those short term goals versus long term goals. Because when we founded the organization, it was like, okay, we want to reach for the moon. We want to have all of these standards. We want to have all these regulations. We want to have everything set to a T so that it's perfectly safe and perfectly accessible. But the reality is like you don't build that overnight. It's things that kind of take these incremental steps along the way. So for us and for the organization, the primary focus in the early stages was really focused heavily on the competition aspect and getting fair, safe, regulated competitions. And it was like, okay, let's refine that, let's tool that, let's get that right, so that when athletes go to compete, they have a great experience. Okay, that's starting to get dialed. 2 years in. Now, how do we expand that and take that to another level? Like, what do we add on top of that? So then comes, the training program, the coaching programs, the regulations, and it just kind of stacks. But it's all these incremental steps along the way that build towards, this big overarching picture of, a really safe, strongly regulated sport. So that's kind of how we stepped along the way and got to where we are today.
And I think that's a key point. You have an overarching goal or, mission you want to achieve, but there should be steps, and you should have those steps marked down. And then once you hit that milestone, move past it to achieve your next step to hit your overarching goal.
Yes, I love outlines and checklists and being like, okay, like, if this is, everything that you want, let's outline it, put it together, and then like, okay, now let's go through and check each box off along the way.
So, Chris, you have been on a journey of you found a passion, you went in as a competitor, grew at that time not just into a business owner and entrepreneur, but trainer, giving back and training in your community, and then moving forward and, you know, becoming an investor in multiple gyms, as well as now being president during of, the World Ninja League. Through that, what has been the biggest moment of feeling accomplished, and what have you learned through that journey?
Yeah, that's a tough one for me, especially because I feel like I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I always strive for like better. So I often it's a big weakness of mine that I don't reflect enough and like look back and be like, oh, like that was a really successful moment. I'm always about, okay, how do I improve that? How do I refine that? Like, what are the next steps? Okay, let me go back to my outline and say, okay, I got this one, but I still need to get this one. So, in terms of the moments that stand out for success, I have to say I'm still working on that one. I'm still working on finding the success, and I think part of that is because I still am very much on this journey and very much still building the thing that I really love and enjoy. So I'm not sure if I can pinpoint a single thing that really like stands out right now.
Well, I think that, in saying that, and me asking that question, there is a lot of moments. You've had a lot of moments. You've been on this journey. And I think one thing you just illuminated that people need to understand is you could continue on the path. And there does not need to be that one moment. I think sometimes people get stuck in this. You have to reach this. And once you reach it, you're done. You've accomplished it and it's turning away. And I think that answer you just gave me really demonstrates that there's always something you could be achieving.
Well,
There's always the path.
it's the journey. Like for me, it's all about the journey. Like when I was competing on the show, I learned early on that success was hard to come by, and I had my successful moments, and my first place finishes, and it, it always was like, okay, well, like I could have done a little bit more. I could have gotten like a little further here, a little bit, higher ranked in like the national stuff there, and I think I really kind of resonated with, well, it's about the journey. It's like, the people that you met along the way, the steps that you took to get there, how hard you worked to get to those moments. I feel like for me, like that's what it's all about. And like that's why I probably just go right back into the journey. I if I'm competing on the show, I, get the buzzer and I go right back to the journey because I'm like, great, cool, awesome. Well, what's next? Let's keep this ride going. So same with the businesses. It's, we hit, a certain level of success and, I just enjoy the journey. So I'm ready to go get back in there.
And how do you keep yourself, I don't want to say motivated, but we all go through ups and downs, personally and professionally, right? We have our good days, our bad days, the days you're like, okay, I worked hard enough. I've done it. I'm good. Let me settle down. Let me take a deep breath. How do you keep mentally that mindset of this is the journey? I got to keep pushing. Let's see what we could do next.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it comes just from really, truly, genuinely enjoying being on that journey. Like, I like where I'm at and what I'm doing. It makes it that much easier. If I was grinding away and I didn't have like a natural love for the sport or for the industry, I think that aspect would be a lot harder, especially when you hit those walls. But I do think that like sometimes when you hit that wall when you're running into that rut or that problem that you're just like, "Ooh, how do I solve?" I feel like it does feel right sometimes to kind of take a step back and say, okay, this is getting hard for a minute. Let's take a second. Let's go enjoy some other aspect of life, whether it's family or going for a run to clear your head or just a walk, and then just kind of getting that space to let yourself recalibrate. It makes it a little bit easier when you go and dive back in head on.
And I think that's a key point. Take the moments to recalibrate yourself, whether it's running, just sitting down, taking your deep breaths, traveling, seeing family. It's all those moments. I remember years ago, um, I was nonstop. I was working 7 days a week, and this went on for over 2 years, where I'd work 6 or 7 days a week. And I remember walking into Chris's gym one day after a long day and just being like, okay, I can just take the moment now to just enjoy my environment because Chris is very good at making everyone feel like a friend and a family member and making you feel that nothing else is important. Just be present. And I remember sometimes having conversations with Chris and I'd be like, oh my God, this is going on. How, like, I got to do this. This is, you know, trying to multitask. And Chris would just be like, well, how's the moment feeling? How's that? Let's talk through this. And sometimes you need that friend to kinda check you a little bit. And
Exactly. You need those people to keep you grounded, and when your head's floating in the clouds, you got to come back down and be like, okay, like what's happening in the here and the now, and just take that moment to breathe, and then it does make it easier, I think, when you do go back to it, if you have that moment to enjoy, especially around good company.
so, Chris, something you have mentioned earlier, and I know this is very much true to your personality. Chris is a family man. He loves his friends and family, and he loves traveling. So, being so successful within your craft and continuously growing, personally, how have you managed to keep that work life balance and keep the importance of what is important to you, your friends and your family, and living that side of your life?
Yeah, I think it all comes back to balance. It's about finding a healthy balance, and um, early on when I was competitive on American Ninja Warrior, it was about having a healthy balance between, the hours that I spent dedicated to training and the hours that I spent, dedicated to progressing the business and, spending time with my, at the time, girlfriend and now wife. It's like making sure that that balance is there. And as the businesses have grown and as my life has evolved, I, now have a son and a daughter, and that balance, becomes trickier because, the kids, require a lot of time, and I want to be there for a lot of the time. So, and as businesses grow, they evolve, they get more complex, there's more moving parts. So for me, that balance is coming from learning to trust other people around me and to let others, take the wheel. And for aspects of the business, it's just finding the right people, the right staff members, family like people that you can feel like will have your back and will do a great job, and you can work together so you can continue pushing forward. Without letting it eat into your personal life, without letting it eat into your mental health or your well-being. So just trying to find that balance through, whatever it is. And for me, it was about learning to delegate and learning to, work really well with others as a team. But for other people, it might be something different. But that's what I found, at least.
I think that you just hit again, you've been hitting the key points today. That is such a great point of keep a balance. Keep you find people that can, once you settle in, that can do the role. Train them properly. And once you train them and you can trust them, you're able to take a deep breath, step back, and say, okay, now I could do something else. I think one thing people, myself included, sometimes forget is you're not the only one that could do it right. I think sometimes, especially for example, with Chris and his gyms, he found a formula that really worked. He was able to make something really successful. But then he took the time to train others to be able to excel that mission, be able to move it forward. So he wasn't the only one in day out and, day in, day out. And I think that's important. Sometimes it's you're you don't have to do it yourself. You don't have to carry, the house on your shoulders.
Exactly. Yeah. If you find the right people that are learning or willing to learn and work with you, uh, that's a really powerful thing and really important, life lesson to learn for sure. Because really the best way to succeed is to work well with others and to learn how to work well with others.
What has been your hardest part on that journey, working with others, being in a leadership role within this organization, your role right now, of the lesson you kind of wish someone would have told you walking in the door so you did not have to struggle through it?
Oh, that's a tough one. I could probably get really specific if I really wanted to.
You could get as
'Cause
specific as you want.
I I just feel like the entire like the whole well, actually, the more I think about it, the more I'm not as sure anymore. I'm losing a little confidence in that because like some of it is like being in the role that I am at the helm of the World Ninja League. We oftentimes make decisions and not necessarily everybody's happy. And I feel like early on, and probably even still today, that type of stuff really bothers me because I am a little bit of a people pleaser. I want people to be happy. I want people to feel like, family when they come in the gym, and I want them to have the same awesome experience that I do when I compete and when I go to competitions or when I'm going to a ninja or an obstacle or a parkour facility. And I feel like I take that feedback personally when people aren't happy with changes or when they don't have the same great experience. And I want to tell myself to be like, oh, like it's okay, like not everybody's gonna love it. But at the same time, I do think that learning why other people's experiences weren't the same or weren't as great is important too. So I'm not even sure if I can really say that, like, be a little more laxed about it, because I do think that that's an important part. So really, I'm not sure if I answered your question.
No, you did.
But that's a little insight to at least some of the things that I think through of just wanting to be able to let things go a little more and just to be a little more like it's okay. But I'm sure you could apply that to anything.
No, I think that's something that's really important is you don't have to walk in the door and know everything. And you will have to at some point, everyone, whether you want to or not, will get criticism and get feedback. And some moments you're like, I don't want it. I think I'm doing awesome. What are you like? What do you know? And other moments you're like, you get frustrated because you're like, I want to perform well, I want to do it
Mhm.
right, but you have a point. So
Mhm.
being able to be a people pleaser, people have different attitudes, so they approach it differently. And being able to take that step back and say it's not personal is very important. And you did touch upon it. You did it.
Exactly. Yeah, you definitely don't want to take anything personally, and learning the right time to be responsive to that feedback, versus like, well, this what we're doing is pretty good, or oh, well, they kind of had a valid point.
What are your steps in saying, as a leader, how can I lead? What do you do to lead?
Yeah, I think that goes back to trying to put myself in other shoes. It's for an industry that is so young and so, in like the early stages of development, for me, it's really always been about trying to figure out what's best for the community as a whole. Um, and while you might not necessarily please everyone, but like you need to look at the community as a whole and be very responsive to what they're saying, how they're feeling, and early on with when the business was in the very early stages of development, I was all about analyzing survey data, asking the community questions, and even taking it a step further because not everybody likes surveys, myself included. I don't know if I fill out surveys that often, but like just looking at like data or trends and saying like, oh, okay, like I can see the community's pulse is this because if they attended a competition that did this or had this in the facility, you see a drop off in participation, and it's like, well, seems like there might be a correlation there. So how do we go back and fix that experience so when that athlete goes back, they're having a better experience the next time? And I think that that's a really big key to success is figuring out really what's going to provide the best experience for people.
And I think that is such a great point. You know, no, there's a very limited amount of groups that will sit there and take the time to fill out a survey. The big joke, right, is you'll get your reviews when they don't like it, because that is when people like to fill out surveys
Yep.
and put online their comments. Is the majority of people, 1 in 5 individuals, will only post if they're happy. The rest of them post when they're not happy. So how you kept thinking outside the box on how to get that data and change things. What were some of those things that you did instead of the surveys to make sure you got the accurate data? Because accurate data is always important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The accurate data is hard to come by, and it's challenging to organize. And I'll admit that early years of running the organization and growing it, it was more fragmented. And as we've gotten bigger, we've gotten better at our data management. And for us, we're really lucky. We have a key partner in the industry that tracks a lot of information from different competitions, from different athletes. And they've played a really instrumental role in helping us learn how to, track and handle our data better as well. So at this point, we have data on pretty much every athlete, coach, community member that participates in our sport. And we can tell almost everything about their competition from, if they attended a comp, how long did it go, what obstacles are in that facility, what the size square footage of that facility is, what the communication was like before and after, how well that athlete performed on the course. So we have all this information that directly connects us to the pulse of the community. And we've gotten much, much better at tracking it through, things as simple and, easy and accessible as spreadsheets. And then even taking it a step further and actually getting it into different databases, and really doing some deep dives on that data.
So that brings me to my next point. Data is important, but being able to manage and keep that data in real time accessible is just as important. You can get all the data in the world, right? And then if you have no place to store it and it goes in the trash, or you can't find it 5 years from now, how great is the data? So what do you do to make sure that you keep and store that data where it's not turning into outer space?
Yeah, no, that's great. And really important thing to figure out as a business owner or entrepreneur, like, what are you going to do with all that information coming in? So for us, we had a slow time during the pandemic. So events shut down, basically all of 2020 or the majority of 2020, we weren't running competitions. So I personally found myself with a lot of time on my hands all of a sudden. And what I did was I actually went and got further education on coding development, database management, because I saw the potential value in it. I saw some of the disorganization happening, and I was like, well, I want to get better at this, and we're not doing a whole lot right now, so let's do it. And I quickly learned, I'm like, oh, this is really important. Oh, this is going to be really good. Let's do more of this. So we've been adding more and more layers to what we're doing with our database management and our, client information. And we've even brought on more people who are focused specifically on that and keeping that data organized and clean.
I think you brought up something that sometimes gets missed in running your day to day and balancing work and life and just everything is taking the time that when something hits, like COVID-19, no one, that was such a black swan, no one could have predicted it. What you pivoted in a way, you said, we cannot sit here, there's no events. What can we do with our time to better the organization? There's a lot of people that, whether it was there's COVID-19 or something completely different, right? When there's a lull in time or it's not busy season, if you're in a seasonal business, it's not busy season, and you say, okay, I could, take my time or, still do all the tasks I'm doing during the busy season, just do it slower. But I think something you really put in there that was key is that when you have that time, evaluate and look what you could be doing better and take the time to learn it. Those are your key chances to push your business, whether it's, your business or personally, to the next level.
Yeah, my wife always talks about how, like, if I wasn't doing something, I'd probably be incredibly bored. And I think that plays a little bit of a role in it because instead of, like, just doing nothing during the downtime, I was like, well, what can we do? Like, like, I'm still excited. I still want to continue on this journey. So what are the next steps? And I think, part of that comes from my excitement and enthusiasm for what I'm doing. I just genuinely just, want to provide a great experience and enjoy doing it.
Well, you're definitely succeeding in achieving that goal.
Thank
What
you.
You're welcome. What is something that is your goal? What is the next step for Chris Wilczewski? What is something that he's eyeing right now?
Yeah. Oh, so are we talking short-term goals? Or are we talking the bigger overarching picture in the next 5 years? What does the organization look like? Because I
I know you have both written down.
yeah, I was like, I definitely have both. I have the meeting after this that I'll be going to where I have my targets, and then I have the future 5 year plan.
So why don't we do this? Why don't you tell me the 5-year plan that you envision the league to move forward? And if you have any personal goals on your personal side, what those look like.
Yeah, that's easy. I'll start with the personal ones. It's for me in the next 3 to 5 years, or even sooner than that. It's continuing to strike a balance with family and work. It's my daughter is a little over 2 years old, and every day she starts asking more questions and is more exciting to watch. And just really overall just like an awesome personality, and I want to continue to be involved there and just continue to expand the level that I'm involved. Like, I want to be that parent who's there for soccer games and Girl Scouts and Boy Scouts and whatever, and just being as involved as I can as a parent. And same with my son, who's he's barely a month old, and not quite as engaging as my daughter, who's talking up a storm now, but still very exciting. And obviously, in the next 3 to 5 years, he's gonna they're both gonna grow into like these awesome, unique individuals, and I just want to be there and experience as much of it as I can. And that comes from striking a good, healthy work life balance and making sure that the right people are in the right places to keep the business moving forward. because we do have some pretty big overarching goals for the business and what the World Ninja League is going to become in the next 3 to 5 years. And for us, that kind of shoot for the moon goal is to increase the participation in the sport, and not just like increase, like get as many as humanly possible. Like we have attainable numbers that we could quantifiably measure in terms of participation, and we want to get our numbers from where they're at right now to levels of other mainstream sports like soccer, football, basketball, baseball. We want to get more kids involved in ninja obstacle course sports, because we feel like it really has such a high potential, and it's very futuristic in the design, the implementation, the grandiose structure that goes into these complicated obstacles and apparatus. And for us, it's really about reaching that through accessibility. Uh, because when you look at what you see on American Ninja Warrior, the TV show, or even our highest level competitions, the accessibility isn't necessarily there. It's like these, really tough, challenging things, that are being done by, the elite in the sport. It's really hard to reach, and your average person who's just stepping into the sport could be incredibly athletic, but they're not going to achieve success in it right away to that level that you're seeing on the TV show. For us, it's all about finding ways to make it more accessible, more reachable, but still providing that awesome experience of going through these competitions and these obstacles. So, when we're looking down the road, it's like we want to, get our numbers up to, 60,000, 70,000, 100,000 people participating in competitions. And that's really where we see, the next 3 to 5 years going, is growing it to that level. And obviously we have plans and incremental steps along the way to get there.
Chris, what is the thing that you want the younger generation coming up to know about the journey and being successful within the sport, but managing it?
I would say that it's really about the journey. Like whatever it is you're doing, like there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs, and it's okay to get down, and it's okay to, ride the high when things are going really well. But I think just really, while you're in it, just try to enjoy that journey and that moment, whatever it is. And, if it's a setback, or success, just understand that it's not forever. It's that moment. And, if it's a rut, you'll climb out of it. And if it's, if you're on the top of the mountain, there's going to be a little bit of a downslope at some point, but that's okay too, because you'll keep going up and down, and just, stay focused on the things that are important and core to you, and just enjoy the ride while you're going through it.
Well, Chris, I think you've hit on a lot of good points here today. It was very informational, and your journey has been amazing to watch and to hear about. And some of those goals, guys, those key things Chris has mentioned today, is have incremental goals, both personally, professionally, that will take you step to step in your 5-10 year goal to be happy with your performance. Sometimes our moments get hidden away. You have to be happy in the good times and push through those hard times, but enjoy it. It's that journey. Chris's word of the day has been the journey. And I think it is really important is to enjoy the journey. And thank you, Chris, for joining us today. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for all your insights and everything you do. And we cannot wait to watch you succeed and achieve your next goals.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being on. I really enjoyed the conversation.